Hey guys, Richard Aficionado Channel and Reese.com, and Indo is back. Hey guys, like I said earlier in the video, the Indo is open, and finally we are starting to get the mariculture pieces in from Indonesia to the United States. And I have heard that the first boxes will be coming to ACI Aquaculture in Plant City, so I decided to make a drive and to show you guys what was going on, and to talk to Chris, the owner of ACI, and to see how things were and how things are now and what to expect from now on. Check it out. We're here at ACI Aquaculture. Chris, thanks for having me here.
Thanks for coming up, Richard.
How's everything with you?
Oh man, very good. Things have been great, but they're getting better. Let's put it that way.
Awesome. So we're here because you got the first Indo shipment in the United States.
I have to correct you a little bit there. It wasn't the first Indo shipment in the United States. It was the first Bali Aquarium mariculture shipment into the United States. And from what I was told from my buddy Vincent, he doesn't think that anybody else from Bali shipped any maricultures into the U.S. and all the corals that were coming in previous to this week were coming out of Jakarta. So it is a little bit different. You know, there's two associations over there now, and Bali is basically the headquarters for where the majority of the coral farming is done. So Vincent's been working really hard, going through all the new steps and procedures to actually do the exports, which is a lot different than what it used to be.
Now, let's take a step back. What happened in Indo? Why did it close down, in your opinion?
There's a lot of different things going around about what happened from what I've heard from people that are over there. Minister of Fisheries back in 2018, it was May 4th, 2018, she sent a letter out that she was no longer signing health certificates for the export of wild or maricultured corals and anemones coming from Indonesia. And the thing that I heard was the majority of the reason why this happened was because they couldn't control what was going on. There was a lot of things that weren't being done properly. Maricultured corals were being, sold as maricultures, and they were basically wild corals that were cut into the mariculture sized pieces and then mounted onto a mariculture disc, set to heal for a little bit, no mariculture tag, but being sent over here to the U.S. with a mariculture permit without actually having the tags and being able to give you a trail of where that coral was grown. And since that was not controllable, and I don't know much about this, but from what I hear, Susie was against anything that's being taken from the ocean. How true it all is, don't know 100%, but obviously she did a lot of good for Indonesia. But at the same time, there's a lot of my friends that live over there that relied on the ocean and corals to make a living, and for the last year and 9 months, they struggled.
So you were there actually right before the ban, right?
No, actually, it's funny. I booked my trip before the ban actually happened, and I'm like, this isn't going to last long. I was, not naive, but I was hopeful that it was just going to be something that they were going to get fixed. And so I still made my trip to Indonesia, and I went to visit Vincent and all my other suppliers in Jakarta, and had a really good time over there. And I waited and waited and waited, just like everybody else in this industry that wanted more Indonesian corals, and it never happened. Here we are a year and 9 months later, finally.
Now, for those people that's new to the hobby, can you explain the process of mariculture and tell us what mariculture is?
To do real mariculture, and this is coming from Vincent Chales, he is the premier coral farmer over there. He's been doing it for 22 years, maybe 23. What they did was they got licensing and permitting from the fisheries department of the Indonesian government to actually go and collect their brood stock from the reefs in Indonesia. And then those corals that they collected for their brood stock, they had to prove, and if I remember correctly, it's 3 years of showing growth from those original brood stock that they were then had expanded and grew their farm. So you collect your original brood colony of a particular coral, and that gets broken down into smaller pieces, which is about the size of our mariculture discs, or they were putting them on the bigger mother colony brood stock discs that go in on the racks. And then they were grown out then they were fragmented off, and there's plenty of videos all over YouTube or wherever you can find pictures of these guys over there. Actually, they never break the colony all the way down. They break bits and pieces off of one side, and they remount them onto either another big broodstock disc, or they mount them onto the smaller disc that we know of as our what we call mariculture. Then, from the time that they have enough of their broodstock that they can actually make racks, which I think were like 10, 15 feet by 4 feet wide, that they just put mariculture colonies. You know, back to your question, Richard, you know, these people think you can put these mariculture racks in a lagoon that isn't naturally having, you know, acropores growing on in the lagoon. Yeah, there might be one here, there's some here and some there, but when it's a lagoon, the majority of that's like grass flats, kind of like, you know, we see in bays and whatnot. And you have your reef crest that shelters that lagoon, which is great for putting these mariculture racks, but there's a lot more work to just putting a coral on a disc and letting it sit there and grow. When you're in a lagoon environment like the majority of these corals are grown, you got macroalgae growing in the lagoon. Well, you got your racks there. There's more room for more macroalgae to grow. So the farmers have to constantly prune and, you know, maintain the corals by making sure the macroalgae aren't overtaking them. So if say a farm was completely abandoned, you know, 5 years ago because the guy couldn't make it as a mariculture farmer, and nobody maintained that, more than likely there's probably not anything left on those racks, because the natural environment, Mother Nature wins all the time. We try to fix, you know, do things. She's always going to come back in and make sure that she puts us in check. So those mariculture racks, there might be still stuff living there, but it's not going to be like you would think it would be, because again, it's in a lagoon environment where it's not natural for these corals to be growing, but they do well when they're maintained.
What do you expect from now that mariculture is back? How is it different from before?
Well, one of the things that is very different is the farmers over there that have gone through all of the new procedures that are there in place to help control exactly what is going on for the sustainability of the industry, which is super important to me. I know it's important to you, Richard, and to a lot of the people that are in this industry. You know, me personally, I do this for the love of the animals. You know, honestly, I'm fortunate that also pays my bills. The animals always come first, as they do with Vincent and some of the farmers that are over there. It is a way to make a living, but they get audited. So basically what they have on their farms is what they're allowed to cut, mount on their discs that they can sell as mariculture pieces. From what I'm told, they're not allowed to go actually collect new brood stock for their farms. So what they have on their farms is what they have for as long as mariculture is available. So one of the things that does do for the industry is what is there is what is there. And we're not going to see much when it comes down to new color morphs and varieties and species, unless there's something that they have that was on the farm, you know, that was audited but is just not in abundance enough to actually be offered to the aquarium trade. And some of that stuff, you know, they have small amounts of, it might take 2, 3, 4, 5 years before that is available in numbers enough to actually send them to someone like myself or another wholesaler or whatever country that these corals are exported to. So that makes it difficult. So with that means that the supply and demand is going to cause the prices of these corals to rise. Now, much to my surprise, I was very, very happy that the corals have not gone up to where all that I read and heard on the internet. Of course, you know, you can't believe everything you see on the internet. I was very, very surprised that the corals didn't really go up that much in price, unless it was something that was not as abundant on the farm. And also, if it was a super highly desirable coral and not as abundant on the farm, you know, we paid quite a bit more money for those corals that we would sell in the past, but rightfully so. And you know, if they don't have as much of it, it's going to command a higher price, because if they're selling all of that off at the same price and they deplete their brood stock, well then everybody that loves these beautiful animals, we're not going to see them again. And I get it. Everybody needs to understand it, and everybody needs to just accept it. You know, knowing Vincent as well as I do, you know, he sent me over his list, you know, and the acropores I went through, and I'm like, no worries, don't bother. It doesn't bother me. And then I got to the LPS corals. We farm corals here at ACI. We understand actually not what, but how fast certain species grow and how slow certain species grow. And we feed a lot. Vincent has them on his ocean farm, but they're still not in their natural environment again. You know, say, like, take for example, like a Blastomucil wellsii. We all miss Blastos. I mean, I miss Blastos, one of my favorite corals. They don't grow very fast. You know, you could take a single polyp of Blasto wellsii and put it on a mariculture towel and put it in the ocean, and here we are 2 years later, we only got 4 polyps. There was 1, now there's 4, or maybe there's 5, maybe there's 6. So for a coral farmer in Indonesia that has to then break that 6 polyp piece down into singles to then in 2 years get 4 to 6 more, we all want them, but unfortunately, that is one of the corals that is kind of a little bit of a shocker in price, but I get it. You know, he doesn't have many of them on his farm, and if he sells them too cheap, he's never going to have them again. So prices are high on a lot of that stuff right now, and some of it is going to be untouchable for people, but then there's going to be, of course, the collectors out there that are not going to have an issue because they haven't seen them or been able to get them, and they will sell. Me personally, if I get Blastos in, they're going right on the farm. Because I was very naive before the coral ban happened, and I never put Blastos in any numbers on the farm to grow out, and I wish I had more of them. So,
especially in your sump, right?
My sump.
Untouchable.
The problem being in lagoons is they warm up faster than the main reefs because the currents aren't as strong going through there. So with the farmers over there, they're farming euphyllias in a lagoon. Perfect environment. It's not super heavy wave action. The currents are kind of moderate. But they warm up so quick that it can cause problems, and farmers of euphyllias can have bleaching events. And I did hear that Vincent had bleaching events on his farms with his Euphylia glabrescens, his paradivis, his paraancoras, and his ancoras endovisus. So they're not as in as abundance as what we would like them to be and what he would like them to be. They do grow quite a bit faster than, say, your you know, encrusting type corals like your Blastos, your Fabius, Favites, you know, everything LPS that people enjoy, chalices, Canophilias, oxyporus, stuff like that, you know, is grown in different environments, and they're not as susceptible. And it reminds me of when I was in Bali in the lagoon diving, and we were at the surface, and it was like probably 76 to 78 degrees, and you know, I dove down into like 30 feet of water to look at this basketball-sized red goniopora that I was like, ooh. And I got down there, and that water was probably in the low 70s, high 60s. And I said to Vincent about that, and he's like, man, he's like, the temperature can go, you know, 15, 20 degrees in a day, you know, high tide, low tide. But when it gets too warm and it doesn't go down to cool again is when they have the issues, which could cause problems for these farmers, which could again raise the price again if there is other bleaching events that could possibly happen.
So we're definitely glad that the ban is finally over, and
yes,
we got the abundance of these beautiful corals once again. How do you think that this ban may come back? Like, what do you think? What are your thoughts on it?
You just made the hair stand up on my arm. Don't talk about that already. You know, we don't know. We hope it doesn't. You know, especially if the wholesalers and around the world, or the importers around the world, are making sure that they're purchasing corals from the supply chain that is doing it correctly, and there's not too much activities going on over there that are not legal, and there's not, you know, we know it's going to happen. Everywhere in the world this kind of thing happens. The wildlife trade, it's a sad thing to hear illegal activities going on, but as long as they can keep and people abide by the laws that are put into place, the rules that are put in place, I don't see it ending. But again, you know, there's bad apples in every business and every trade. And it only takes one bad apple to spoil the whole bunch, like they say, and we just hope that that doesn't happen, and you know, Vincent and the other farmers over there can continue to make a livelihood out of what they love to do. So I wish I had a real answer for you, but I'm going to give you a roundabout that I can't answer 100%,
Gotcha.
and neither can Vincent.
All right, Chris, so thank you so much for having us here and explaining everything about mariculture. And we're really, really happy to have these corals back. And how does it look to you after you opened up your first box, by the way?
Well, put it this way, the crew that is here with ACI now is not the crew that was here before the coral ban went into effect. And these guys have seen me unbox, I don't know, well over 100 Australian coral shipments. Maybe not quite that many, but a lot of Australian coral shipments. Honestly, we were no different than anybody else with Australia coming in. So I was excited to see that, 5 pieces out of the Australian shipments that were really, really sweet. But seeing Bali for the first time in a year and 9 months, my employees were looking at me like I was some sort of crazy man. I mean, when you skip back from the putting away corals and you're skipping back with a tray in your hand, ready to load it up again, and you're excited about it because you haven't seen this stuff. And then I got to a point, and this is the straight up truth. I got to a point I was so happy for Vincent and the other guys that I got a little teary because it was just so exciting that I get to put my eyes on these beautiful corals again. Yeah. So the excitement level is back for me. It always has been there, but it's just taken it, way above what it has been for the last year and 9 months, for sure.
Man, I really love your energy. Like we always talk at like 12 o'clock at night, and we get so excited about corals. I seen your live video at 2 in the morning. 3 in the morning, sorry. I mean, it's insane. I love the energy. I love the passion and excitement in your voice. I love to see that spark in your eyes once again. And congratulations to get the first Bali Aquariums shipment. I mean, I was just taking a look at it. It looks totally gorgeous. I wish you the best.
You were back here for a while taking some videos.
Oh yeah, I was. I had to. So congratulations. I wish you the best of 2020. Have a great day, Chris.
Thank you, Richard. Wish you the best too, brother.
Thank you.
Hi guys, I'm Vincent Chalias. Make sure you follow Richard for aficionados.